So please welcome back to the table, Mary Plummer.
Oh. All right, thank you. All right, cool, it's good to be back, CA. So marketing, but I'm also heavily invested on the whole training and curriculum development and making sure that we're able to teach you guys how to use this stuff because it's really awesome. So it's great to see that many Resolve users out there. Obviously, we have Resolve 16 now. That's right, 16. It's in public beta. Public beta number 3 just dropped, I think, last night. So if you haven't tried it yet, we've actually put it on these systems, tried it out. And one thing I was going to mention is we have this new keyboard. I don't know if any of you saw it, the editor keyboard. Jason's going to bring that down. Hopefully he won't forget. Or I'll send someone. There he goes. Jason, bring me that keyboard so that I can show it to you shortly. But meanwhile, we're going to talk a little bit about editing just for a minute, because I know there's a lot of different types of editing out there, right? You can't, no two projects are the same. Even if you're on a series or if you cut movie trailers or whatever it is you do, no two projects are the same. That's one of the reasons I always loved it. It's like puzzles, right? And if you look at the nonlinear editing, the workflows that we have used, I mean, it's taken us, what, 30 years to get away from tape, finally? 30 years, I think. I mean, it took a long time to finally step away from the decks and the tapes. And you know, the workflows are awesome, right? They're complex. We can do pretty much anything now. I'm just making a few changes here so we can show, you know, this is Resolve, obviously, and this is the edit page. As you can see, we haven't dumbed this down or simplified it. We've actually made the edit page more powerful than ever. Here comes Jason with my new editor keyboard, which I'll be showing you shortly. Thank you. Anyway, so we'll get to this in just a minute. But the idea is that it can be as complicated or as simple as you want. So I'm just bringing on a few extra things here so you can see. This is also the edit page. So I went from very simple to more complicated. And yes, we have my keyboard, which I'm not going to worry about right this second. So the cool thing is it's great, and this is the edit page. And the one thing about this is that sometimes we don't have long-form projects. So those of you who work on features and documentaries, and I've done all of those as well, you know that you're spending a lot of time organizing and getting used to your material, a lot of work before you ever get there, and metadata, and all of that is fantastic. But what about those fast turnaround projects that we have? How many of you, just give me a little sound out there, have ever had a really fast turnaround project? Or like that day? Yes, right? Where it's like that day, and you don't have time to label things and organize. You just need to get it out the door. And so what we've done is rethink things a little bit, and I'm going to switch over to our new page, and this is the cut page. As you can see, it's a much simpler view. You are still in Resolve, so you're still going to have access to all that power, but the idea is it's a much leaner, streamlined interface. And it works well on a single screen. Now, obviously, I have a really big one up here, but this also works on a laptop, or if you happen to be on the set and you only have a single screen with your computer. So we're going to spend a little time looking through what makes this unique. Just remember, yes, you always have the edit page and all the other things that make Resolve awesome, but this is all about turning around a project quickly and using this interface to do it. So in the top left, just to give you a quick run through, the top left is our media pool. Obviously nothing magical here. It's a media pool, right? Now, one thing about it is the idea was speed, being able to get through things really quickly. So when you click on things or when you're doing things, there should be some action that goes with it. So for example, if I click on something, you'll see that I'm able to live stream right here in my viewer. Obviously, you can see that right here. So I can preview clips just by touching them and rubbing across those, so that's awesome. And you notice my viewer will change from either my timeline, whatever's there, or whatever I happen to have loaded in the viewer. So it's a dual, my viewer will have dual purposes. And then let's go take a look at this timeline for a minute, because you may have noticed it looks a little strange, right? There's two sections to this. It's one timeline, as far as the amount of real estate, but it actually has two different parts to it. At the top, it looks a lot like a map, but it's more than that. It's a live timeline. So for example, I can grab a clip right from here, I can drag it over, and I can even resize it if I wanted to. Let's see, I can scrub my playhead. If I want to move a clip or adjust it, see, I can resize it. And if you notice down below, I have another version of the timeline as well, which has more detail. What's cool about this, and I have it muted right now, just so you can see, is I can zip around to any portion of my timeline really fast. I can see all my clips. I can tell I have some, these are my different video tracks and audio tracks, but it's just really, really easy to see exactly what's going on and what I want to do. Let's jump to the beginning. And by the way, if you're used to using shortcuts, your home key and your end key will work, your J, K, and L keys will work, marking in and out, all those type of shortcuts you're used to, of course, those are still going to work here too. So let's go to the home position. I'm going to unmute this. I'm going to play you some fabulous Vegas music right now. And hang on one second, just checking to see if my volume is set good. It's good enough. Okay, let's try that again. It's fine. It doesn't need to be loud. You get it, right? All right, good enough. So you can see I can, obviously there's my playback. Now one thing that's really cool about this, I have these two timelines, is I could at any time, as I'm going through this project, because I am trying to do this quickly, is I can go, wait a minute, I just had an idea of something I want to fix. I don't have to wait or make notes or come back to it later. I'll just fix it. And in this case, there was a moment where the music did a little double take and it was on one shot, and it would be so much better if I change that and make this shorter shot. Let me just come over here and show you this short shot. I'm just going to move it over and watch. I just scoot it over. It automatically jumps into a new position, and if I play that back, see now there's a cut where the music does its double take. It works a little bit better, and I just had that idea and I thought, why not try it? You notice I didn't mess anything up. I was able to just do that right here. I can also make changes in the timeline, of course, but what's nice is I have access to everything right here. So live active timeline at the top and at the bottom. Let's go back up to the media pool for a minute. I want to show you there's a few different views. Now obviously I can go through my clips. Nothing magical there, of course. We also have our list view, so if you need to go in and find things by list, you can. And we also can go over here to a clip view, and what that's going to do is it's going to show you the entire clip head to tail, and it'll give you a little thumbnail. So for example, let's look for something fun here. Okay, I've got this clip right here that's got all of these little, let me just bring it up. As you can see, it's got all of these little mini explosions of the fireworks, right? So I could buzz through that and kind of see that really quickly, and it gives me a better idea of what's going on in the clip because I have this view versus if I was here, okay? So I can't tell a lot about this from poster frame. So just depending on what I want to need. Now, let me show you something that's completely unique here. So how many of you are editors? Right. So one of the things as a good editor that we're supposed to do is look at the footage, right? Now, if you're working in long form, things, you know, if you have a good assistant or somebody, they may organize it really, really well. So that means things are in bins within bins and metadata and all that stuff. But I just want to find a shot, you know? I looked through this stuff because I was an editor and I am an editor, and I know you got to look at your footage. So now I need to find, there was this one flashy shot of a sign with a green and white sign, and it had like a In-N-Out burger thing on it. I know I saw it. And people are like, yeah, right, it's in there. So what do? You have to go digging through bins, and I have to go, wait, it's this clip. Nope, this one. Wait, just one more second. So there's no easy way to do this. But let's go back to nostalgia for a second. Those of you who use tape, you remember that. Remember when you could have a jog wheel and you could just buzz through your footage really fast and find the gold? It took 2 seconds. You could go through it and find exactly what you wanted. Well, we could do that here, too. I've got a button right here at the top called Source Tape. And if I click on that, it automatically took every single thing in my bin, every clip, and it just strung them all together as if it was one tape. Now I'm going to mute this because there's no reason to need to see this, but I could drag through this real fast. Look, there's my footage. Is that cool? So as a good editor, I know. I'm like, so it's like nostalgia, but it's new at the same time. It's like nostalgia. What do you think? No, maybe. But anyway, so what's awesome about this? Look, there's that shot. I told you. Did I not say? There's the shot. Look, is that? It's exactly what I said it would be. It's a shot of, let's look, In-N-Out burger right there. See, green shine. I told you it was in there. So what's neat about this is in source tape mode, I could just hit X to mark that clip. Notice that as you go through the footage, it automatically will show you where they are. And there's the shot. It's right there. And I can bring it up now, and I can mark it. I could have even marked it in source tape if I wanted to, but I was able to find it because I had that option. Now I'm going to come back to this, go back to source tape for a minute. I still have that clip marked, by the way.
How did you mark that?
I used X to mark it, and so I'm going to clear that out. Now I'm back to my source tape again. So every time I get a bin full of B-roll that I've got, like, I'm in a hurry, right? I'm cutting. I've got someone out on the strip shooting extra footage for me. They're going to post it sometime. I'll have it. I'll just use source tape. But there's one other really cool thing about this is right here we have this button called Fast Review. And what the fast review button is, guess, it's to review it really fast. So again, I need to look through the footage. Now that time I'd already seen it, I was just going through it really fast. But in this case, if you hit fast review, and I'll just come randomly here to this spot, as I play through this, it's gonna play fast, but it's dynamically. So every single clip will be played, even if it's a 30-second shot, I won't pass it because it'll play it faster than real time, but not too fast that I might miss the clip. So it's a really great way to see it, and again, it's dynamic. So if I have a 20-minute shot and a couple of really short bits in there, I will see them all. I'll just see them quickly. So very useful. So although this seems like old school thinking, it's awesome when you have to go find your shots or just look through them and go, okay, I got it. Because those of us who have ever cut linear and used tapes and all that stuff, you used to just digest it, right? You'd watch those tapes, it'd just all be in your head. You knew that this stuff was there and you knew where it was. You could just go find it, mark it, and work with it. And we do that now, but this is just one way to work with it. So again, source tape, and as I go through it, the clips are loaded. So that's very, very cool. Totally unique to this page. Now I'm gonna go back and let's go back to our film strip mode for a minute. And I'm also gonna sort these by time code, and let's just go look at marking clips, for example. Because all the stuff that you would need to do when you're working, let's come down to this clip for a second. Now this one's already marked. But I'm going to clear the marks, just Option X, the same shortcuts you always use. X marks a clip, Option X clears them, I and O mark your ins and outs, those type of things you probably have memorized from days gone by, right? Still work. So if I wanted to, I could go through this shot. I will unmute it now. I want this little section here, and obviously I know where it is, so I could just mark it.
See. So they're calling you the new king of Las Vegas.
But that's not really exciting. Do you notice one thing that's pretty cool is I can see the waveform, so I can already find her little chunks of questions, right? So that's pretty fast. I can also click here, and notice what happens to the waveform when I click on the in and out point and start dragging it. Do you see that it goes into a close-up view so I can really see that waveform? Well, that's pretty cool. So I can really nail that much better than I might have been able to do if I was just eyeballing it. And then one other thing we have, which is really big, for me anyways, have you ever run out of mouse space where you have an hour-long clip, and you're sitting there trying to drag this over to mark a teeny tiny little sliver of dialogue, and you're like picking up your mouse, and you're like, God, and or you run off a desk because you just can't get the mouse to go right. So we have something for that too. Right here at the top, left and right, you will see these two little things right there and there, and what those are, if I click on that, that's going to go into our scratch trimmer.
So
and what that will do is, look at that. I'm able to take my mouse and click right on this, and now my endpoint, I can just barely move my mouse, just a tiny little bit, and it will just bring that in at a constant velocity, bring it right in with total control. And so whether it's a huge clip, it could be a 50-minute clip, or it can be a 50-second clip, and I can get exactly where I need to and never pick up my mouse, yay. So that's pretty big. So look at that. So I can just and barely moving my mouse, I can have it just a tiny little space.
How do you feel about that?
Done. Okay, so pretty cool. And so there's a lot of these little things built in that just make it a little bit easier if you want to get in there manually and tactile, get in there and set your clips. So okay, we've set the clip. Now what? I want to put it in the timeline. So let's come over here. Now look, I know it goes right around here, so I can just click anywhere on that upper timeline area. And of course, I've jumped right to that spot. And it's going to go right between these clips. So the thing about editing in the cut page is we have the standard tools. You can still use your function keys to do your inserts and overwrites and all that, but we also have some smart tools that are really designed more for this page. And the first one is a smart insert. And you're like, oh yeah, what's so smart about it? Well, what makes it smart is you don't have to be on the exact edit point, because when you do your inserts or any of your cuts, it's not going to cut the footage underneath. You have to manually, if you want to cut, you have to either use a shortcut or there's ways to cut, but it's not going to happen by accident when you're adding more footage. So see how my playhead is just in the ballpark? I'm close, right, to that point right here. So I'm going to go back to my source, and I'm just toggling basically the Q key, which toggles back and forth between your two monitors, right there. And now I'm looking at my source, and I'm ready to drop it in. I'm going to hit Smart Insert. You're going to see it insert itself right here on both timelines, and let's do it. Done. Okay, cool, right? And so I can bring this back.
Sharing the world.
So they're calling you the new king of Las Vegas. How do you feel about that?
Okay, very cool. And if I wanted to make any kind of trimming, I could do it in either timeline. I could do the rough trimming here. I could go down here, and I can roll. I can click one side or the other, and I can trim it off this way. You could use your shortcuts. And check out up here. Do you all see my nice graphical view here where I can get in there and do some refined trimming? So I can click the middle if I want to roll that point. I can ripple those edges as well. I can use shortcuts. So you can really do it at very fine detail, or you can just rough it in and deal with it later. For me, cutting short, obviously when we used to commit to tape, you had to make pretty good decisions and live with them. In this case, when I'm cutting this, I can go back and make another pass and tweak it later. So right now, I just want to get it cut. So that's my first edit. Let's look at another one, append to end. We also have this on the edit page. I'm going to go up here and choose a clip there. This one's already marked, and he says...
I'm very honored. I'm a very, very lucky man. A very, very lucky man.
He doesn't really say it twice. That was me. So one of the things about this is when you cut, how many of you cut talking head shots? I mean, you've done stuff, documentary work, news pieces, whatever it is, the talking heads, right? And so we find those sound bites. It's all about what are they saying. Forget about making it look good. We'll deal with that later. So they say something great, and I know I want this, this goes near my tag. If this isn't the button on my show, this is going to be close to it. So how do I get it over there? Well, you just click this button right here, append to end. It's automatically going to just throw that clip at the end of the timeline, so it'll be close. Okay, now it's at the end of the timeline. And guess what? I might come along and find something I like also that might also go somewhere down there. I'll just toss it on down. And I'll just keep throwing things to the end, and then eventually I'll figure out what I like and get rid of what I don't. But at least it's in the right place. All right, let's go back. There's more. All right, so now we have a ripple overwrite. This also comes in really handy. And what's awesome about this, it's like a 4-point edit. And I'm going to come to a space right about here. This is shot. Notice I can scrub across this.
About the show here.
Okay, so this is our introduction. Let's hear it.
Hi, Matt. How are you? Thank you so much for having me. Tell me.
Okay, so this has to be this. I mean, she's fabulous. Don't get me wrong, because she really did a fantastic job with this. However, that's a lot of me. How am I? And this isn't about her. It's about him. She's already done her introduction. We have to cut some time out. That's going to go. I just wanted to ask a question, right? And so, in going through the footage, I found a place where she actually says it in a much more succinct way. Now look at this tiny little sliver of sound, right? Remember I was talking about having to set tiny in and out points. So this is the clip I actually want to put in this spot instead of what's already there. So this one is much longer, this one is shorter. It doesn't matter what the lengths are, it will just make it up on the way. And all I have to do is click this particular button, which is my ripple overwrite. Notice that my playhead is nowhere specific, I just happen to be over that clip. If I hit this, boom, the shorter clip is now in the timeline. Now where this is also awesome, let's get back to, is that right, also awesome? Talking heads pictures, documentaries, long form stuff where you got a lot of bits of pieces that you got people saying things, and you found someone said some gold and you're like, gosh, that's so awesome, and you put it in a timeline, and then later on they finally say something much more succinct that's way better than what was there. This is what you use, just back up, put your play there, drop the new piece exactly where the other one was. Then it was a placeholder. But what's awesome, at least this way you have something in the timeline, and at any time you can replace it. So it's a 4-point edit, and that is our ripple overwrite. We also have that on the edit page as well, but very useful, especially when you're moving fast and this kind of situation comes up. It's perfect. So let's go to this next one, close up. Now again, this one's a little more creative. I'm going to come down to this montage section here. And what the close-up view is going to do is it's going to allow me to pick a shot that I'm going to use. It's going to drop into the timeline, but it's also going to do a 2-time zoom for me into the center of the clip. Now, I can always adjust it later, but that might be useful. So here we have some music montage. He's talking about the band. And what I would like to do is throw another shot in there of the band. I'm going to just come on down here. I like this clip view because I can see it, and there's a shot of this drummer right here. I really want to work with him. And if you notice, he's already centered. It's a pretty darn good shot, but I'm thinking I'd like to punch in on that a little bit, and just to save time, I'm going to use this close-up view. So first thing I'm going to do is mark it in and out just randomly, there. And once I have that, I want to drop it in the timeline. Now, where is it going to go right now? Let's take a look over here in the bottom left. Let me zoom in. So There we go. So if you look on the edges of the clips, there's not a whole lot here. It's supposed to be fast, right, as we work. But if you look, one has the little, it's red. That means that anything I edit in, like this particular clip, it's going to be looking at my bass track or my track one. So I'm going to go ahead and click track 2. And then what it's going to do for this type of edit, it's the first time I've had to do this, is now it's going to look at this edit point right here and stick it right there. Had I left 1, it would drop that on a second track, but it would start it at this edit point. So that's how you tell it where to look, basically. So let's drop that in. Where is it? Let's hit my cue. So I'm back on that clip. I've already got it marked, and I'm just going to hit this button 2 times zoom. It automatically dropped it in. It put it right where I wanted it. And if I come back here and look,
I mean, they slay this room every night.
and see how it zoomed in on them already?
So they're calling.
Cool. Now, can I go in and make adjustments? Yeah, all I did was add a zoom to that, and I can fix that later. But ideally, I thought it, I did it, moving on. Okay, again, it's all about, I got to get this out. We got to make FedEx. Did anyone ever have to chase Federal Express to get your tapes or your drive out? I can't tell you. I know every place I ever worked, I was like, I knew where the airport was that had the FedEx there, because it was like, no, 5:30, we're not going to make it, but 8. The planes don't leave till 8. You could do it, but you had to get there, right? So fast turnaround, it's real, right? So it's just now people just beam it up, right? So it's just changed a little bit. Okay, so let's move on. Let's place on top. I don't even have to show that. That just is basically going to do a cutaway. It's just going to put it above whatever you happen to have here. It'll never cover up what's there. It'll just put it above. Let's move down to the last one, which is super cool. In fact, I'm going to show it to you again in more length. But this one is unique to this page. I love this. I'm going to go up to the earlier section here. So this was a 2-camera interview of him. We didn't get the hostess on camera. She fed questions and then later turned the camera around and got her on her own asking the questions. So in this case, I have 2 cameras, and what's nice about this is we have something called source overwrite. And what that will do is it'll look at the time code of the clip in the timeline and match frame to what you have in your source viewer, so you can mark ins and outs and drop it in. And like I said, I'm going to show you this with this keyboard in a couple minutes, because you can do some really fast editing using this particular mode. So for starters, let's go up and get his clip. Now, one thing about this particular clip is the sound was really rough. He was not mic'd for this. He was mic'd for the other angle. So I just turned the sound off. So in case you wonder why I'm editing this without sound, trust me, I'm editing this without sound on purpose. And when I go to cut this section again, this interview, I'll show you why in more detail. Okay, so I have this clip right here. This clip is the exact same match to this one as far as somewhere in here. So let's find a spot, and I can use my JK and L keys. Right there, he's looking down. I can easily see if I'm matched that way, right? So my playhead is over a clip. I'm going to come up here to my source. Here I am, and this is, again, the source clip. And all I have to do is hit F for match frame, and it automatically found the match time code frame. Did you all see that? Really fast, right? So match frame, but this is where it gets fun. Now I can mark, we can do several different things actually with this one, but let me just load this up. Disconnect that, bring this up. And again, F is for the match frame, and then I can mark my in, and I can go through here and say I want to go to just about there. I'll do a short little bit. And there's my in, there's my out, and now all I have to do is hit source overwrite, and it'll automatically drop it where it belongs over top of that clip. So that is so helpful. So
I'd like to think the show has elements.
now obviously I wouldn't really cut to that shot here, but did you see how cool that was? That was super fast. And look up here. I can even nudge this, and look, as I nudge it, I can see both cameras up in the 2-up display, so I can kind of decide how I want to tweak that. I could do that way faster with the keyboard, but obviously I can choose how I want to edit this. So again, this sort of thing is just so fast, so I can go through and drop in all the B camera, first lay in my main track, then drop in the B camera. If I have another camera, I can go find that and just get the little bits I want, and it'll automatically match it. Saves so much time. Not that doing multicam editing isn't fun, because it works great if you're if you like working with that many at a time, but this is another way to go. So, excellent, right? Fun? Yay. Okay. But wait, there's more. There really is. Okay, so let's come on down and just little things. Like, for example, as I'm going through my footage, I may see a shot and I was like, you know what? I think I want to put this in another spot. I can move things from one timeline to the other too, because they're both timelines. So I just took it from the lower timeline to the upper one. I can go from the upper to lower. I can drag from one place to the other anytime. That's the easy stuff, right? Let's go back to, let's see, what do I want to do? Oh, I know. Things that happen in the real world.
That have thrown my way.
Jump cuts. Okay, going back to those of you who've ever done documentary work or, newsy type pieces. Now, obviously with the news, you can't like fake it, right? It has to be real. But in documentary work, sometimes people don't ever finish a sentence, or you've cut it together pretty nice, but you can't cut away all the time. You have to sometimes have a jump cut. And in the old days, yes, we had jump cuts, and they never looked good.
Way.
It's a jump, right? I mean, if people are really into the story, they get used to them after a while, but you never do if you're the editor. Now, one of the ways we get around that is there's 3 types of transitions. There is a cut. Yes, a cut is a transition, in case you didn't know. That's how do we get from one clip to another? The transition's a cut. We also have a dissolve. If you click this button, the 3 most common are here. Here's my dissolve. If I click on that, it automatically threw a dissolve on here for me, and I can make that longer or shorter. Obviously, I'll make it short. And those of you who've done this sort of thing, that was the Band-Aid, right? Well, let's put like a 2-frame dissolve on there. That won't look as bad, right? And sure, it doesn't look as bad, right? Let me go back to that.
That have thrown my way.
Okay, but seriously, I've done long documentary work. I mean, after a while you go, okay, that's not so bad, and you start going 3 frames, 4, 2 frames. But it's better than the jump cut sometimes, right? But of course, we also have our smooth cut, which we have on the edit page as well. What the smooth cut does, it actually morphs the 2 clips together, so it's looking at the pixels. And so if I go to smooth cut, which I just switched this to by clicking that button, and now when I back up this, back it up.
Thrown my way. I'm just great.
Okay, it's there, but it's barely there, right? So again, ethically, you don't do it in the news, but when you're doing documentary of talking heads, and when people understand, yes, we're going to edit you to make it sound better, and they'll approve it anyways, right? So you'll show people the finished thing, and they'll be like, wow, I had no idea it was that good, and you'll be thinking, you want to see the raw stuff? You have no idea. So anyway, so smooth cut is very useful. I've heard a lot of people going, why would you ever want smooth cut here? It's like, it depends on the type of project you're working on. So there's my smooth cut. But we also have all of the other transitions. Let's switch this over to clip view. Let's come up, and as you can see up across the top, I also have my other transition. This is Resolve, right? So I have everything in here. So let's do something really awful. For fun, right? No, I mean, seriously, we can. No, just, I mean, okay, we've got our hostess to our hostess. What do you do there, really? You can get a wipe. Dissolve's not going to look right. The cut's okay. Let's do something really bad, because we can, and it's Vegas. So, there we go. Let's do a star wipe. Yes, yes. Star wipe. Okay, so this is Resolve. Now notice where I put it. I actually dragged it to the upper timeline, but it worked, and it is Resolve, and why not? So.
In Las Vegas. Tell me a little.
Yes. So okay. Again, don't use this at home. But you can see, I can change the size of that. I can even roll it around if I wanted to, if I needed to change that. If I want to trim underneath it, I have all my trimming techniques. So anything I need to do, I can do it in the timeline, I can do it up here. So you can still make adjustments, right? And, use it lightly. But there's my star wipe. Okay, so we've done that. Let's look at we have our titles, and we also have our effects. I'll come back to those in just a minute. Let's look at making a few adjustments to clips themselves. I'm going to go back to the beginning. Let's say I've cut my piece together. I'm fairly happy with it. Let's come back over here. And, oh, wait, I just heard. I've been waiting around to hear from my camera operator who was running up and down the strip trying to grab those last-minute shots, right? I had like an hour to put this together, and now, I need those other clips. Well, they're here, so I can go get them. So you can import footage right into the cut page, so I can import individual clips, or I can go for an entire bin of media. Let's go get that. Yay, there it is. So now I have a new bin of material I can't wait to see, and I have no time whatsoever. I got to make FedEx. So what we're going to do is, although they come and pick it up from you nowadays, but not late. So I'm going to, there's my footage. I'm going to just mute this, because one thing about B-roll footage is those camera guys. Look at that audio. You do not need to hear that. Okay, so how do I look at all this stuff? Well, let's go to our source tape. There it is. Here's every single clip is now in here. I can buzz through them really fast. find what I want. Oh, look, it's a poster. That's just what I needed. I can mark that clip if I wanted to and work with it right from here, or I could set in and out points in, out, or whatever I want to do, and I could find a spot in my timeline where it's exactly where I want it to go, and then I could edit that in depending on what I set. So I have lots of choices, and like I said, very easy to go and work with this. I can always back up. You notice there's not a lot of bin structure here to make it easier to work with, and also keep it nice and clean. Let's go back to the beginning. Now, I've done my cut, and I just want to kind of fine-tune things because that's what we can do now that we can do that. And we are in Resolve. So, for example, I can look at my footage and I can make any changes I want to right here in the lower left. There is a controls button. And by the way, I can also, this will bring up our tools. I can even hide my media pool if I really want larger space, by the way. So you do have some flexibility there as well. So I'll leave it up, but just showing you I can hide that if I want. I'm going to play this through, and what I really want to do is make a few adjustments. I'll leave the volume off for now because it is that Vegas song. You'll be singing it all night already. So if I want to, let's say, just resize this slightly, I have, if you look at the controls across the bottom of the clip, here I've got my transform, so I can say, well, I just want to move it just a hair there. That's really what I really wanted there. Done. I come over to this clip. This one, oh my gosh, where's my explosion? What did I do? Okay, so I don't even have the right footage. I mean, if you notice, I don't even see it, but every single clip, when you hover over it, you will see that there's a tool, and I can just click and drag, and you automatically can slip any clip by just touching it and dragging left and right. So what that gives me is I can see the first and last frame, so I can totally fix this. Where's my explosion? So, oh yeah, better. So let's say I want to use this, for example. All right, I fixed it, but now I'm looking at going, I'd really like to slow it down a little bit more. So I'm going to come over here, and if you look, I have my crop, I have audio if I need to raise or lower the levels, and I also have retiming. And this is Resolve. So those of you who work in Resolve already know we have really awesome retiming tools. And so when I turn this on, I can do all kinds of things. In this case, I'll just lower it down by, let's say, 50%. And I'm also going to add a ease in and out because I can. And then I'm going to go back here, and there it is. Although now I've missed it again, so I might want to slip the footage and get just the right explosion, right? There we go. Okay, next. Boom, okay. So as you can see, as I go, I can make whatever tweaks I want to. I'm almost ready to send this out. So what's next? All right, we get Wobbly Camera. Now I realize this is a creative choice, but sometimes it works, right? And for a while there, everything on TV was that nice handheld camera, right? It was a great time for Steadicam operators to learn how to do their craft, right? Was when everything was free. All right, so as you can see, this is a bit wobbly. So it's not bad, but I'd like to smooth it out a little bit. So I'm going to come over here, and again, we're in Resolve. So yes, you can do some lens correction, and we have stabilizer. So I'm just going to click that stabilizer, click that stabilize button. It's going to just fix that clip up for me. Let's see. Better. And then I'm going to look at this next shot, and it's like, wow, that one's awfully wobbly too. Let's go ahead and fix it. All I have to do is be over it, hit stabilize, done. So it's not perfect, but it's better than it was. So those two match up better than they did. So again, I'm not having to do a whole lot of work to get here. And let's see what else we have. We have this fabulous, right here, we also have our dynamic zoom. And if any of you have ever worked with our dynamic zoom, it's pretty cool. Let me go further down. Let me find just the right shot. Let's go down to the band, actually. I'm going to come over here. We have a nice shot of our musicians there. I'd like to use the dynamic zoom here and just kind of push in on them a little bit. And that's all I have to do is just remember that I have to decide the green is my starting position and the red is my finishing position here. As you can see, that was really hard. Took a couple seconds, right? All I did was turn it on. Now, yes, we have this in the edit page. You just have to go into the inspector and work with it. Here, we can do it really fast, right? So let's go check out what I've just done. See that push? Okay, maybe it's not perfect, but you saw what I did what I said to do. It not necessarily means it's a good idea, but that's the dynamic zoom. And then let's go a little bit further. I'm going to come on down towards this end, and if I switch over to this one, you'll see that we have on this end down here, I have a clip, and let's just play around with something on this end. Right here is my compositing, so yes, you can access that too. So if I wanted to change the opacity, Or let's say I wanted to go to a composite mode, and just so you know, I would never actually do what I'm going to show you, but I could go in here, and if I, let's say, go to the add mode, now I can see both of these at the same time, because that's really what I want. He's haunted by this show, and or something like that. I mean, but if you wanted a composite mode, because that's how you work, and you already have the clips in there, how long was that? And again, it's going to play back instantaneously. I don't have to do anything special to make that work. I'm going to just clear that right now. Thanks. But all right. Now, other things I can do is I'm going to mark this clip for a minute so I can do some looped playback, because we'll also show you, you can also access your other open effects as well. So this way I can, let me loop this. I just marked in and out points, and that way I can, as you can see, we can loop this clip. So if I wanted to go in here and instead let's look at our effects, we have all of those awesome Resolve effects are built in here as well, because we're still in Resolve. So let's go into something really crazy like our tilt shift blur, which isn't really crazy, it works pretty well. I drop that on the clip, and I can now get a new icon here, which is to let me open an inspector. So we still have an inspector option when we're dealing with these open effects, but now I can come in here and I can say, well, what do I want to do? I want to do a little bit of this. I have controls where I want this to happen. I'll just do it like that. And let's adjust the blur strength for a minute. As you can see, we can do quite a bit of that. So I can have this effect on here if that's something I wanted to do. And obviously you can go in and make a lot of changes there. I'm going to trash that one. Let's go for something crazy. I'll go for the stylize because I would use this every day. I'm going to come over here, open that in the inspector. But you know, with the blend mode, I can make it much less, right? But what's cool is, and you notice I'm doing this in real time, which is kind of fun. And these are, let me go back to my loop playback over that particular shot. And I can change these to all kinds of craziness. You know, not that you would do it every day, but we have kaleidoscopes and mirrors and all those fun things that you would absolutely use. But for maybe the tag of your show, if you're doing something interesting, here's interesting, right? Let me clear that out. So this is, just touching on some of what we could do pretty darn fast right here in the cut page. I'm going to turn off these controls real quick. So let's say we're done. We actually finished, and we have a few minutes to spare, and we got this, I'm ready to output this. We come up to the top right, and you'll see we have a quick export. And this is automatically set up. And right from here, so you notice I never have to leave this page for anything to do these really fast things. So if you look, I've got my H.264, here's my ProRes H.265. We have YouTube and Vimeo, and there's even Frame.io if you need to. So right here I can export those. You just have to set up your account. And if you have your account set up, you just go right, set that here, and it will automatically post your show right to your YouTube channel or your Vimeo or whoever needs it. You can get it right out to them immediately. No FedEx. So amazing. And I'm going to cancel this out, but here's something that happens. I'm going to come back to my media pool, and let's say I'm going to look at my timeline bin for a second. I haven't even been in there. There's my clip. I'm going to duplicate this timeline for a second. As you can see, I can just duplicate the timeline. Because let's say, here I am in my timeline, but I got this request where they need it. They need my show in the vertical. Anyone ever had to do that? Have you seen commercials and shows actually delivered in the vertical? And you know why? Because people can't do this. No, just kidding. But you get the idea. I mean, I get it. It's a deliverable. This is new, right? People will watch a lot of stuff here. And yes, faces are nicer here than like this. So I totally understand it. But we're in Resolve. I need to do that. Now, what a pain that is, right? To now turn my timeline into that, except we're in Resolve, right? So I come over here. I click on my settings. I'm going to come over here to image scaling. And I just have to change one thing. Right here where it says scale full frame and with crop. And if I set that as my input scaling, right, and I save that, now what I do is I already have my show, I've already done my cut, everything's ready to go, and I just come over here and just change this now to portrait. Wow. So not that you'll do this every day, but look at that. It's ready to go. Right? And now when you get that, you want, what? We actually have it, and you can watch it in the vertical. And yes, I could go in here, and if I needed to make any changes, I could, clip by clip, but this will take me seconds, and it's ready to go too. Okay, let's send this one out. And, okay, anything else? And so you can adjust that. So pretty cool, right? All right, so this is the mini quick cut pagey type thing. Let me show you one more thing. I'm going to hide this for a second so I can show you this keyboard, okay? Now you're probably thinking to yourself, wow, that is one big keyboard. It is, but this is the keyboard. Now just so you know, it's metal and it's heavy and it's got a clutch. So it's quite awesome. So I'm going to hide this right now. It's like a car, right? And so what's cool about this is I'm going to move this keyboard out of the way for a minute, and I'm going to see if I can just show you a couple of little things. You already know what you can do with it. Let's go back to this keyboard for just a second. Come on. And if you look up here, I just wanted to show you a couple of the things that you'll see on this keyboard. Now, some people, I've only used it for a couple of hours, just touch it, but if you've ever edited, you know, linear editing on decks, right? You know how that it comes right back, right? It's like playing an instrument. It is like playing an instrument, actually. And so you immediately will get that feel for it right away, using two hands to drive. If you're good with the shortcuts, yes, you can do a lot with shortcuts, but this is pretty fast too. So you'll see this clutch, and right here, your scroller, which is right here, will also has 3 different modes. You can switch to source mode, which will show you your source tape mode, or you can look at your timeline really fast. Over here, you've got all those trimming tools. These are the different types of edits that I just walked you through, so those are super fast to be able to just hit those and go. So on your left hand, you can call up a type of edit. You can be using the jog wheel. And then these in here, what's funny is I worked with for like 2 hours, and my daughter says, oh, what are the colors for? I was like, oh, there's colors? I don't pay any attention to this because if you know the keys, but I understand that they're grouped by, things like navigation and sort of things. But every single shortcut, if you already know them, they're already there. And if you don't, you can learn them pretty fast this way as well. So we'll have this hooked up so you can actually try it out here when we take our break. So enough of that. Let me just show you a couple of quick things I can do with this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that source tape mode. Remember I said how fast I could work with the source tape. So let's go in, and I'm going to have a little nostalgia moment here, and I'm going to make a new timeline. What is that? And I have no idea what that is. I was going to say test, but this is what happens when you have a microphone between you and your keyboard. There we go. All right, so I have some clips here that I want to edit with. So remember how I mentioned before that, you could just drop in your original source. This is my full clip. In fact, let me clear those in and out points for a second on this, and I'm just going to drop it in. That's that first type, and instead I'm going to use my keyboard, and hopefully it's working. Let's see if it's set up. Yep, it's working. Okay, so I'm going to just hit the Smart Insert and drop the whole thing in. Okay, so there is my clip. Now what's cool is if I'm in scroll mode, I can buzz back and forth. I can jump back, and now I'm in the timeline. And with one spin, if this was an hour or if this is 30 seconds, I can get from one end of the timeline to the other, which is really cool. But there's more. All right, let's go get that other shot. Remember how I said how cool this might be? All right, so here's the other shot with the sound. Let's see if I can. Oh, I've got it muted. I'll spare it. You hear that sound? Is this what your project sounded like? No, I hope not, because this one is a redo. So as you can tell, there is nothing that I would want from this clip at all to use, and there's no reason to even add that to my timeline other than as a distraction. So I'm going to first clear those in and out points, and I'm going to go to that source clip right here, and this is where we jump into the attributes and go ahead and let's just take that sound out, shall we? So we're just going to say mute. Done. Okay, so now when I load this clip up, in theory, let's load something else first and come back to that. Now in theory I shouldn't have to hear him. Okay, yay. Okay, so let's look at this timeline. Notice my timeline at the top is one clip. Why? Because it's one clip. It's showing me my entire timeline. All right, let's go back to my home position. Again, I can do that from here as well with my arrows. My scroller. Okay, so what I want to do is we're going to load up this shot and this one. And first thing we'll do is let's find a spot. Now, this is not how I would necessarily work. I'm going to show you a couple of really quick ways that you could make this keyboard work in your favor. I'm just going to use hands as my guide here. So hand movements is when I'll be triggering my cut, mainly so we can see it, okay? And it gives me something visual. So right here, we see him talking right there. He's got his hands up in the air. I want to be in this shot at this moment, okay? That makes sense to me. So first thing I'm going to do is match frame. I just hit the match frame key. Let's make sure we are, actually, it's going to match up here. So where I need to go is I need to do that on this timeline. So let's look at this footage. There we go. Same idea. There's his hands, right? So let's go back to my source. And as you can see, if I hit my match frame, there's the same spot, okay? Now, this is cool. There's a great big in and out buttons right over here on the far left, so I could just mark that as an in. I'll just buzz over a little bit. There's his hands again. I think I love that. He closes his hands together. Why not? That's my spot. Then right here on the top left of my keyboard I have that button that's source overwrite. Done. It's in the timeline. And then I can just see. Let's see if it worked.
The sensibility of a big show. Not necessarily with the production. I just wanted it to be engaging.
Okay, so it worked, as you can see. So I can then decide, do I want to continue working up in the source? Let's go on to the source for a second. Let's find another spot. Coming along here, and okay, there we go again. Anything else? Okay, that shot. I like that right there. I'll just mark it in. Right? I mean, I can match frame. Match frame always goes back to what I already had in my timeline. If I'd rather use it and feed from there, I can. Or I can do it from back in my source. So I'm going to go back up to the source, and let's find a new spot. Let's say this is the spot we want to work with. I can mark it in. There's a nice hand movement right there, and source. It's going to drop it in. So think about this. You can go through an entire tape really fast, your second angle, and just find the part where, okay, he's looking down. Oh, I like this a lot. That's it right there. That's magic. Love it. And I can just hit this button, and it's in. Next. And you see how fast you can go. And then think about this. You have the two angles, and then maybe you have the overhead shot because it's a DIY or something like that you have to do really quickly. Then go in and get that shot and just grab the magical parts of it and don't waste any time on anything else. And you see how fast I'm moving. So that is super cool. Let's go back and just play for a second because I'm going to play editor here. And I'm just going to play this for a second.
I went to the Savoy, met her there. She showed me a couple of dresses. We choose which was best. Then we went to the Royal Albert Hall. I hung out with her at the backstage. Let's
say I want to kill that.
Went to the Royal Albert Hall.
See that? Let's just say I'm a good editor, and I decided I'm going to take that out. So I'm just going to make a cut here with Command B, if I wanted to. Now I'm going to show you if I can see it. There's a Command B. So I just made an actual edit there. I could have also I didn't show you this when we were on the cut page, but you could just right-click on it. If you right-click on your playhead, you get a little scissors right there, so you can blade it at that moment as well. So let's jump off of that, and let's say I want to trim this real quickly. Well, I have these trimming tools are all sitting here right on the left that I can work with. So if I click these, notice that it's flashing those different parts of my edit. I can do a roll. I can do trim that off this way. I can trim that off that way. And I'm using this little wheel, and that takes me like seconds. I'm done. Okay. Done. Let's go down. Oh, right there. See that? I got to cut to the other angle now. I really do. I just can't not cut to the other angle. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to match frame. There I am. I'm already at that angle. Mark my in. That is so. Oh, he does it again right there. He's doing a toast with Frank Sinatra. That's the shot. I really wanted that. And I'm going to just drop that in. Source tape. And you see how fast that was? It's crazy, right? And this is how I want to work. Right, so, and you can choose whichever tool you want. I can go back.
Then I walked into a room, and there was Frank Sinatra, and just erased the glass.
Okay, now I don't really love my outro right there. So again, I have these keys, so I can come up here and I can look at this part. I can look at that part. I can decide. Let's roll that a little bit, and look what happens when I'm rolling it. And see how I'm using this. I mean, I've got one finger on this. And I just swing this around. Yeah, it's super cool. So my imagination's going crazy on this one, going, oh my gosh, I could do so much. So you really have to play with the keyboard. Let's do one more thing. Let's go back to that. See this cut right here that I made? See that jump cut? I want to fix that. Let's throw in one of our dissolves. Let's do a smooth cut right there. I just dropped the smooth cut in, and with one button, I just hold the one above it, and I'm able to shrink that down. Do you see how fast that was? Again.
I hung out with her at the back.
Okay, so now I didn't actually cut the So that's a big fail, right? So let's fix that Let's get over here, and I'm going to trim that Let's do it underneath. get rid of that. Right.
hall, hang out with her at the backstage.
So anyways, I could spend all night just playing with this. And this is footage I've barely ever seen, but you get the idea. So whatever your workflow might be as you're buzzing through footage, and I've cut film trailers, indie films, and we had stuff as like, oh my gosh, we're in a festival and we have to have a trailer out tomorrow or today. We have 4 hours. So it's like, quick, throw the film in here. Let's go find some footage and let's cut this together. And you just got to do it as fast as you can. And so the cut page offers a lot of really great promise for fast turnaround projects. Again, this edit keyboard that we have, you could use for, let me hide this. So the edit keyboard, what's nice about that is it also works obviously on the edit page. So you can do a lot more with it than just what you do here, but obviously depending on your workflow, this can be a really wicked combination in a good way, of course. So one more thing, we're not done. The other really important thing that I have to go through, and then we'll do some questions, is I have a few minutes. I need to show you some of the really awesome stuff in audio. Okay, so we're just going to unplug from all of this really awesome fast turnaround stuff for a few minutes. I have how many? 15, is that what you said? Okay, yeah. Okay, I'll go fast. Oh, come on. You said 70 minutes. No. All right, switching over. And here we go. We are now in... This will work. All right, I'll give you the fast version because I can. This is what the cut page looks like with a film trailer. And this is why you don't use the cut page for a film trailer. There we go, and I'm going to Fairlight. All right, so here we are on the Fairlight page, hiding stuff. Okay, just showing you the big stuff then, okay? Right here, automation is bigger. How many of you do audio, make a sound? Anyone? Audio? Okay, the rest of you are in silent films, is that what? No. All right, so how many of you care about sound, really? So it's part of our lives, guys. It's half the project, right? So it counts. So a lot of what I'm going to show you is the high-end stuff, but I'll make it kind of zippy here. We have more. Okay, so we had a lot of automation options before. We now have more. I'm going to just show some automation curves here in the timeline. Let's see where I have some. Obviously, you can see your curves for your different tracks. Those of you who do a lot of audio, I have a lot of tracks here. And I also have some buses and submixes and other things as well. Well, what happens when you want to do automation on those? You can't really see them. So what we have done is if you go to your index, you can now show, you've always been able to show tracks. I'm going to hide automation for a second. You can always show and hide tracks. You can have more or less depending on what you want to work with. But now when you're in automation, as you can see, I can now also access my mains. I can see, here's my effects and even my VCA groups. So you can see now, check this out, there's my automation for all of those. I'm going to mute this because you don't need to hear it, but you can see, if you look at the faders, you can see they're moving according to whatever I happen to have happening at that moment. So pretty cool that you can see that right here, and you can also go in there with your pen, you can make adjustments to them right here, or you can obviously record more automation. And, I mean, this is to buses. These are submixes in buses, which is cool. Up here at the top, we also have, I'll just show you under the Fairlight menu, there's your automation. You can punch in, punch out. You can fill, copy, cut, paste. You can even have a mix list. This is brand new, by the way, with this version that just dropped, right? And what the mix list does, this actually lets you save a mix, everything. So let's say you've got a really good temp mix and everything's sounding just the way you think you like it, but no one's come in and sit there with you yet. So you've got it to the point that you know it's pretty darn good, and you pretty much know where it needs to go. Save that mix. And now you can always load that one back in. Then you can have person over your shoulder, people watching you, make all the changes you need to, but you can now, it's like having versions, right? And it'll set it all back to what you had before. This is fairly huge, okay? And you can just save all those different versions of your mix. It'll automatically reload all of those things. So definitely try that one out. We also have real quick preview mode right here where I can turn on preview mode now. So for automation, even though you already have automation on your tracks, you can click on preview mode and that will allow you to override that automation. You can get your faders back while you test out new settings, and you can even drop those in if you want to, if you like them, but it gives you the ability to preview, audition, basically. All right, so that is the changes in automation. Another really huge thing, so I might as well show it, is over here, this is the big one. If you have Resolve Studio, you go to Fairlight, and you now have access to full support for your Atmos, Auro 3D, and your SMPTE ST2098. So if you're doing those immersive audio, let's go with just Atmos because it's at the top. Now that I have that, I can now create tracks. If I make a new track, I can make an Atmos track now, right? And there it is, and it's actually shown up already in my timeline. I actually can go up here and make buses. Let's go up to my bus format, and I'm going to change my LCR to an Atmos track as well because I can. And now I have, so you can actually go in there and use those. We have already had our 3D panning. This is regular panning, option, double click. This is our 3D panning, which we had in the previous version, but we had no busing architecture to actually do much with it other than make it look really cool. And you can do some neat things with sound. But now what we also have, let's move this aside. I'm going to open the other track. Right here, here's my Atmos track. I'll just bring that one up for a second. So you can see I also have that for panning, and up in our Fairlight menu under Immersive Tools, you have your Space View Scope, which will allow you to see it. And by the way, the color of the track is the color of the object. So if you're doing object-based panning, and sorry, these are really big because this screen is small. So I'm used to having more real estate here. But the idea is I can come in here and let's just rotate this, shall we? Whee! See that? Sound. I know, object. So if you, I mean, this gets the imagination going. So if these are those things that you can work with, I'm going to close this track up and just bring up a mono track for a second because that's cool. Okay, so we have this, actually that's not the one I want. Sorry. Move down here, let's do this one, an actual clip. Okay, so what happens is if I pan this, as I pan this around, you see it moving? Whatever color the track is the color of the object. There it is moving around. And you can even change this to show the actual labels of all those clips. As you play it, it'll show the little mixer. You know, you'll actually see what's playing, and it'll still move out of the way of your objects as you're panning them around. So you can kind of place things and see it. So it really gives you a chance to visualize things. We also, and this is more the boring fun stuff, but your B chain control. So you can also set up all your B chain. And for those of you who don't know, what's a B chain? The A chain, it's getting the sound to your mixer or your finished project is what we've done. But getting it back out so we can hear it, that's the B chain. So like this theater has its own preset installation of speakers. We wouldn't want to accidentally override those or whatever. You might have multiple sets of speakers or microphones or talkback or whatever. So you can set all that up here now. You can set up your B chain right there. And if you don't know what this is, you don't really deal with B chain, so that's cool. But you can actually make those presets and save them, and you're in good shape. And then you can also name them and lock them right here by protecting them. So the only way someone can accidentally load up a project and not override all your stuff is you have it already protected and named. Or you will see, oh yeah, that's my theater speakers. I won't accidentally patch something else in or whatever. So that's a nice little safety net. Two other quick things. Elastic Wave is super cool. This is brand new. You're going, what did I just do? Let's say you're in ADR and you recorded something, and the way it's darn close, right? It sounds good enough, and you're tired in ADR, so it's close enough, right? It worked at the time, but then you realize, wow, that's really not close enough. So you want to make it a little bit closer. So I'm going to zoom in on this, and I'm going to change that, pop it out, because I can hide this. You know, we have a very flexible interface here when you're dealing with audio, which I like. Okay, so that might be too much. Let's just zoom in a little bit. Okay, so I have my talking guy here. Might as well unmute that. And this is the original sound.
What? He didn't call for it.
It was a little bit farther away, and for whatever reason, they wanted us to replace that with this, which is great, but it's not.
What?
Let's say the waveform isn't lining up quite right. Let's go over to the elastic wave. I'm going to make sure I reset the speed curve. Okay, so this is it, and it's close, but as you can see, these waves aren't really lining up exactly right. I either can get these pretty close, or this one is not quite there. And yes, I can get a blade, and I can sit there and kind of move it around, but with the elastic wave, you could just command-click and set markers, right? And set a few, and then I can stretch this out. Now, it does not change the pitch. Obviously, if you stretch it too much, you're going to hear that. But the idea is line up those consonants. I'll put my playhead there. If I can line up those consonant sounds, that's where we're going to see lip movement, and that's the part that we really need to match up to. So let's get that kind of close. Get that back.
What?
There we go. So it's on now. And I can move, and obviously you can set as many markers as you want to, but that is new, and that's built in, and obviously
What? He didn't call for it.
works right away. So huge. Last thing, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's fun. Play with it. I recommend that one. Again, I'm going to come back and show you one other thing. We have right here, I'm going to turn on automation for a second because I also want to bring up our meters, and I'm going to hide this back in here. Up here at the top, we have loudness meters. Now, those of you who don't, does anyone know what loudness metering is? Do you ever deliver stuff? It's that thing you have to do. You have to meet those requirements if you want to pass QC and actually get your deliverables out there. So it's fairly important, and it's the law. It's what we have to do. So up here, we have new loudness metering. We make them bigger. There. Loudness metering. So now we have different presets. We're using the most current standards for our metering. And I also have my American standards. You can go to European, and we also have like Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Italy at the moment. But what you can do is you can set it to whatever standard you're using. I'll set it to American standard. These different colors that you'll see in my metering, red is bad. Okay, just so you know, you got to do it again. You got to fix it if it's red. I'm just going to start playback while let me reset this and start. I'm going to start this playback while I'm talking about this. So yellow means we're within tolerance. So whenever you have those meters and they say, yeah, it has to be minus 24 LKFS, but you can be plus or minus 1. Well, if it's yellow, that means you're in that plus or minus 1 or plus or minus 3 or whatever it is you happen to be able to do. So if yellow means you're darn close, red means do over or fix it. So the thing that we run into is, okay, great, I know I have a problem now. Where is that problem? And so we have that. If you turn on your automation, let me go back and I'm going to show my main. And let's look at my main for a second and make it, I'm not used to this scrunchy little thing here. Let's pull that down. Look at that. We now have integrated loudness right there in the timeline. So I can actually see, not only can I see my automation, but I can actually see, yeah, I know, it's pretty cool, right? So I can actually go, oops, I better fix my whatever I've done wrong, adjust my whatever needs fixing, because it might just be one place. It might be that one explosion or scream or something that's thrown off your whole set. So you can find exactly where it happened, make adjustments to your mix, and then I can just reset and start that again, and it'll redraw those so you can see it. So huge, right? Cool, and that's right here. It's just hiding. You got to turn on your automation to see it, and make sure you're showing your main track. Yay! So awesome. And we have plugins and all kinds of other cool stuff. So check out our website. Try it out. It's free. Right.